Hi, this is Dustine from Two Lucky Cats. The project I'm going to talk to you about today is how to make a paper mache box that you can use to put all your treasures in. You can go to our website and download the information sheet that goes with this video, and it lists all the materials and all the tools that you need to create the box, and it also includes the patterns for the box and for the decorations for the box. I also have other videos I've made in the on our website that talk about the materials that you can use and some of the techniques that you can use with creating with paper mache. So if you have everything that you need, let's get started and I'll show you how to make the box. Here's the two boxes that you'll have the choice of making. The construction is the same, but they're decorated different. So I'm going to show you how to start by making the box. So I've used bookboard to construct my box, but if you want, you can use cardboard. Now, you want to take the piece. You see on the information sheet that there's a piece that's 6 inches by 6 inches, and that is the bottom. So you want to take the bottom, and then we have 4 sides. 2 are 6 by 3, and the other 2 are 6 1/4 inches by 3 inches. So you want to take the 2 that are 6 inches by 3, and you want to get your glue. And to glue the boxes together, it's really better to use PVA, book binding PVA glue. And you can get this on different websites that I have on information sheets, both that go with this video and other sheets that I have on my website that talks about working with paper mache and what materials to buy. This I got from Amazon.com. So just take some glue and just put some along the edge, and then I just use my finger and put glue along the edge, and then I put some glue along the other edge. And what I need to do is, when you're doing this, you need to put down wax paper, because this will help prevent things from sticking together. Now, just take your one side and put it like this. Now, if you want, what I did when I was doing it, I just propped it up with a bottle. But for these two sides, if you want, you can just cut a piece of masking tape to kind of hold these sides up just for a minute. There we go. And the masking tape will be covered, so you won't be able to see it. And you do this, let me make sure I have the short side, yeah. Oh, this will look. No, this is the right here. There we go. Put it like that. And let's get a piece of masking tape. And just tape that like this. Now, I wouldn't use Elmer's glue because it really isn't very tacky, and it just takes forever to get stuff to be glued, and everything's falling all over the place, and it just really doesn't work that well. So now I just get the sides up like this, and then I take one of the longer sides. Now the reason this side is a little bit longer, it's 6 1/4 inch, is because the sides here of the bookboard are 1/8 of an inch thick. So 2/8 is 1/4, and that's why I added another 1/4 of an inch onto this side. If you're using cardboard, it's probably about the same thickness. So all I did was kind of just put a little bit here, and then just spread it around the edges, because all this is going to be covered with paper, so you know, even if you don't get it exactly So I just put this on the edges, and even though this sets up very quickly, you still have time to make sure that you can make sure all the sides are flush. And then I just flip it this way and just do the same thing with the other end. Just put a little bit of glue. Let me just put it up here so you can see what I'm doing. And put a little bit of glue here, and then spread it out. And if you want, I would just keep a wet paper towel so you can wipe your finger off. Alright, so then put that on top of here. Oop, like that, and then just move it until everything is flush. Okay. And then you can put it down, and I'd let it dry for about an hour or so before you start putting the paper on it. If you're like me and you don't cut things exactly the way they should be, it doesn't really matter because you won't be able to see any cracks because it'll all be covered up with paper. Now the next thing that we're going to do is the top. Now we're going to have a piece. Let me show you here with the top of this box. We're going to put a piece on top of the actual lid, and the purpose of that is to keep the lid from sliding around. So you're going to have a piece that's a 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 that'll fit on the top. And it's 6 1/4 because the square is 6, and then to account for the both sides, so it'll be 6 1/4. And the piece that we're going to put in the middle that'll hold the lid in place, I made about 5 3/4 on each side. So we're just going to take some glue and spread the glue around. And there's no tool like your finger. If you want, you can get a brush and do it with a brush, but a finger works just as well. So flip it over and then kind of center it in the center of that piece. And then just let it dry again for about an hour before you put paper on it. Alright, now the paper that you want to cover the paper mache box with. And this, you know, the paper is what gives the box its strength. The first coat that I use is newsprint, and you can get this in a tablet, and you want to cut, or you want to tear the pieces of paper. If you tear the paper, then you won't be able to, all these seams won't be that visible when you put the paper, cover the box with the paper or whatever you're making with paper mache. At first I used newsprint because, newspaper, because a lot of the books that I had on paper mache used newspaper. The problem with that is it has all that ink on it and it's kind of messy, and then you have to paint it with some latex paint to cover up all that print. But if you use the newsprint, it's pretty inexpensive. It comes in a tablet and you just tear it up into pieces, so it doesn't really matter what size tablet you get. Now when you're putting the paper, covering the box, I always start with the edges. And usually what I'll do is either I'll start with the back side of the box or inside the box, and I'll cover all the edges. And I just take glue. Now you can just use Elmer's glue and mix it with water. And I have a formula for the glue mixture that you can use to put your paper on with. But my favorite is just, I have methyl cellulose, and I use some of the PVA glue to strengthen it, and that's what I use to put the paper onto the box. But you can just use Elmer's glue. So what I do is I make sure I spread the glue mixture all over the front and the back of the paper. Just like that. And then I just start on the edges and I just smooth everything out to try to make sure there's no air bubbles. And then I just cover the box. And like I say, I'll do the inside of the box and let it dry for a while. So when I do the whole thing, you know, it gets real sticky. So if you let it dry, then it won't be sticky. It's easier just to flip it over and then do the back side. So I cover the box with the newsprint, just like I showed you. Do all the edges and then do the insides of the edges. And then when you're doing the box top, just do the same thing. I start around the edges and then do the inside. Do the one side, let it dry, and then flip it over and do the other side. Now, for these boxes, once you cover the box, and the box is, the paper is dry, the first layer of paper, the newsprint, we want to put a knob on, and this is what I use for a knob. It's a big wooden bead. It's probably about 1 inch in diameter. Now, to find out where we're going to place it, I just take, and you do this after you have your first coat of paper on, and I just get a pencil, and you go on the diagonal here. Get the two diagonal corners and make a line, and then I do it again, and then you have an X. So right there where the lines cross, that's where you're going to put your bead. So I just take some of this and glue it down, and then what I do to make it stronger, because this is where you're going to lift the bead all on and off, I just cut tiny strips of the newsprint, and I cover it in glue, and then I'll start at the top, and then I'll just put it down like this and glue the strips around the outside of the bead, and I'll smooth it down, and I overlap the paper and then just smooth it down. And this is an extra precaution to make sure that the top is going to stay on, or the bead will stay on, to be the handle for the top of your lid. Alright, once you do that, once you cover your whole box and the top with the newsprint and everything is dry, then you can apply the paper for your decoration. Now, when I first made boxes, because I use newsprint, all the boxes, or all the examples I saw, were painted. You painted it with the first coat of latex to cover up the text and the pictures that were in the newspaper, and then you could paint on top with acrylic. So I just experimented. I was doing other things with handmade paper, so I decided, instead of having to do all that painting, that I would just use handmade paper that already had a color in it. Now, the favorite paper that I like to use is mulberry paper, and you can either get it that has a textured surface, or you can get it so it has more of a flat surface. So it's really up to you in terms of what look you're going for. For example, in this box, the petals of the flowers are made from flat mulberry, and the background is flat. And then these leaves are done with textured paper, textured mulberry. Another type of paper I like is pineapple paper. So that's another good paper that you can work with. Now, again, when you're ready to apply your decorative layer of paper, you want to cut it up, tear the paper. The only exception is if you're going to do like I did and do the inside a different color and then have a different color around the edge. What I do is take the color that I'm going to have do the inside with, and I just overlap it. Here, let me show you this edge. Overlap it like this. So then you'll have an edge of a different color. You do all the outside edges and do the inside, and you overlap it here a little bit. And then when I'm going to do this, I'll use the edges of the paper, the straight edge, and I'll tear the rest of it. And then when I do the part here that comes up against the color that overlaps, you can just get a straight edge and glue these pieces around here. All the other paper you tear because the edges will melt into each other when you put glue on it, and then you want to make sure that you rub it really well, and that'll get all of the fibers to mix together. Again, I do the same thing. Maybe either I can start with the outside or I can start with the inside, but I do either the inside or the outside, and then I'll let it dry completely, and then I do the opposite and let that dry. Once everything is dry, then I do the decoration. Alright, let me just briefly explain to you how to do the decorations. And all the decorations are cut out of handmade paper. You can find the pattern on the information sheet that goes with this video. When you're gluing the decorations here on each side, it's the same. Start by gluing the leaves and then do the largest part of the orange flower and then overlap the pink flower, and then you can just put the finish off the flowers with the medium and the smaller piece, and do that on each side. Now in order to do the top here, I just cut out kind of little rounds and put it over the knob here and then smoothed it down. For the squares here, these are just 1 inch by 1 inch square, and then of course in the middle you need the 2 squares that have a little bit of cut out for the knob. If you find that there's a little bit more of the background here coming through, you can just take another little piece of paper the same color as the square and just fit it in there and just smooth it down. So you can just put take your ruler and line up the squares, like start here with 1 square and then skip an inch and put the next 2 squares in, and then you can pretty much just put the rest of the squares, of course allowing when you get to here that you have to use a square with a little circle cut out, and again the same thing here, and then just finish doing the top. Once you're done, you just let all the paper dry, and then I just give it a coat or two of polyurethane to protect the surface of the box. Now, for the second box, of course, when I did the knob in the middle, I did it yellow because I made it yellow for the center of the flower. And you do it the same way, just tear little pieces and overlap them. And then you can just cut each of these petals and glue it in the corner. This part here goes in the corner. Then, when you're doing each side, first there's a branch, so put the branch on, then glue the leaves, and then in the center just glue the flower and put the center of the flower, of course, in the center. And that's all there is. You do the same thing on each side, and your box is all finished, decorated. I hope you enjoy this project. We have a lot of other projects on our website that you might enjoy also, so please come and check it out. Also, friend us on Facebook so you can keep up to date on all the projects and the new ideas that we're always adding to our site. We'd love to hear from you. Come back and visit us often. This is Dustine from 2LuckyCats.com.